I never thought a simple trip to the library would change my life forever, but that's exactly what happened on a rainy afternoon last week. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just needed to escape the downpour for a bit. The old town library seemed as good a place as any to wait out the storm. As soon as I stepped inside, I was hit by that musty smell of old books and dust. You know the kind of place. Dimly lit, creaky floorboards, shelves that look like they haven't been touched in years. I wandered aimlessly through the aisles, running my fingers along the spines of forgotten novels and outdated encyclopedias. That's when I saw it. A thick, leather-bound book with no title on the cover, just sitting there on an otherwise empty shelf, like it was waiting for me. I don't know why, but something compelled me to pick it up. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe something else was guiding my hand. I cracked open the cover, and my blood ran cold. There, scrawled in messy pencil along the margins, was my name. Not just once, but over and over again. At first, I thought it had to be some bizarre coincidence. After all, I don't have a particularly uncommon name. But as I flipped through the pages, my heart started racing. There were notes, personal notes, things no stranger could possibly know about me. A reference to the bike accident I had when I was 8, the one that left that little scar above my eyebrow, the name of my first dog, Rusty, who died when I was in middle school. Even a line about the nightmare I'd had just last night, the one with the endless hallway I could never seem to reach the end of. It was like someone had been documenting my entire life in the margins of this random book. Every significant moment, every private thought, all laid bare in faded pencil marks. I felt exposed, violated. How could this be possible? My hands were shaking as I turned to the middle of the book. That's when I saw it, a note underlined so heavily the pencil had torn through the paper. He will find this book today. He must not leave without it. I slammed the book shut, my pulse pounding in my ears. I looked around wildly, suddenly feeling like I was being watched. That's when I noticed someone standing 2 aisles over, just standing there, perfectly still, staring at me. I couldn't make out their face clearly in the dim light, but I could see they were holding an identical book to the one in my hands. Panic gripped me. I backed away, nearly tripping over my own feet as I rushed to the front desk. The librarian was there, but something was off. She didn't look up as I approached, didn't even seem to register my presence. Her hands were trembling slightly as she stared blankly at the computer screen in front of her. Outside, the rain had gotten louder. It was pounding against the windows now, an almost deafening roar. I could hear distant thunder rumbling, getting closer. I muttered something about forgetting my library card and bolted for the exit, leaving the book behind on the counter. The drive home was a blur. I kept checking my rearview mirror, convinced I was being followed. But the streets were empty, everyone else smart enough to stay inside during the storm. When I finally got home, I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. That's when things got worse. I went to hang up my wet jacket and froze. There in the pocket of my backpack was the book. The same leather-bound book I swear I left behind at the library. My hands shook as I pulled it out, half expecting it to disappear like some kind of hallucination. But it was real, solid, heavy with the weight of impossible knowledge. I ran to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. But when I looked up, my reflection in the mirror was wrong. In the mirror, I was holding the book, even though my actual hands were gripping the edge of the sink. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, but the image didn't change. Frantic now, I went from room to room. Every mirror in the house showed the same thing, me clutching that damn book even when my hands were empty. I tried to calm myself down, tried to rationalize what was happening. Maybe I was having some kind of mental break. Maybe I'd hit my head without realizing it. That's when my phone rang. I jumped at the sound, fumbling to pull it out of my pocket. The caller ID made my stomach drop. It was my own number. With trembling fingers, I answered. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then I heard it. Heavy breathing on the other end, ragged, inhuman. I hung up, my mind reeling. This couldn't be happening. It had to be some elaborate prank, right? But deep down, I knew this was something beyond explanation, beyond reason. Days passed in a haze of paranoia. I barely slept, jumping at every sound. The book never left my side. I was too afraid to let it out of my sight. But new horrors awaited me each morning. One night, I woke to find fresh pages scattered across my bedroom floor. The handwriting was different now. Urgent, almost frantic. "Do not answer the door at 3:07 a.m., it warned. I gathered the pages with shaking hands, glancing at the clock. 2:59 a.m. The minutes ticked by, agonizingly slow. At exactly 3:07 a.m. it happened. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on my front door. I held my breath, every muscle in my body tensed. Then I heard it, a whisper so faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Come back, come back." I didn't move, didn't breathe. Eventually the sun rose, chasing away the immediate terror of the night. But the dread remained, settling into my bones like a chill I couldn't shake. Now, every morning, there's a new note waiting for me inside the book. Sometimes it's a cryptic warning, sometimes a fragment of a memory I'd long forgotten. The latest one, God, the latest one has me more terrified than ever. Soon he will take his place among the shelves. I don't know what to do. I've tried destroying the book, burning it, shredding it, even burying it in the backyard. But it always reappears unharmed, mocking me with its presence. I've thought about running, about packing up and leaving town, but somehow I know it would follow me. So here I am recording this. A warning maybe, or a confession. I don't know anymore. All I know is that something is coming for me, something that knows everything about me, something that's been waiting. And I'm so afraid that when it finally arrives I won't be able to resist, that I'll take my place on those dusty library shelves, another story waiting to be discovered by some unsuspecting soul on a rainy afternoon. If you're listening to this, be careful. The next time you're in a library and you see a book with no title, leave it where it is. Don't let curiosity get the better of you. Because once you open that cover, once you see your name written in those margins, it might already be too late. I've always been an avid hiker, spending countless weekends exploring the trails of our local national forest. There was one path in particular that I thought I knew like the back of my hand. It wound through dense pine forests, past babbling streams, and up to a stunning vista overlooking the valley. I'd hiked it so many times I could practically do it with my eyes closed. Or so I thought. It was a crisp autumn day when I set out alone, my backpack filled with water and trail mix. The familiar scent of pine needles and damp earth filled my lungs as I started down the well-worn path. Everything seemed normal at first. The crunch of leaves beneath my boots, the occasional chirp of a bird overhead, but somewhere along the way, something changed. I can't pinpoint the exact moment it happened. It was gradual, like the slow shift from day to twilight. The trees began to press in closer, their branches reaching out like gnarled fingers. The path beneath my feet grew narrower, barely visible beneath a thick carpet of fallen leaves. An uneasy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. I told myself I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere, but that didn't make sense. I knew this trail. I'd hiked it 100 times before. Still, I pressed on. What else could I do? The air grew thick and heavy, like trying to breathe through a wet blanket. It felt as if the forest itself was pushing me forward, herding me deeper into its depths. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, always disappearing when I turned to look. I don't know how long I wandered. Time seemed to stretch and warp, minutes bleeding into hours. Just when panic was starting to claw at my throat, the trees suddenly parted. I stumbled out into a clearing, blinking in the sudden brightness. What I saw made me freeze in my tracks. There, nestled in the heart of the forest, was a village. Not some modern-day tourist trap or quaint bed-and-breakfast community. No, this looked like something plucked straight out of the 1800s. Small cottages with thatched roofs lined a cobblestone street. In the center stood an imposing stone church, its spire reaching towards the sky. I stood there, mouth agape, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This couldn't be real. There were no villages like this in our national forest. I would have known about it. But as impossible as it seemed, it was undeniably there before me. What happened next was even stranger. As I cautiously made my way down the main street, people began to emerge from the cottages. They were dressed in old-fashioned clothes, women in long skirts and bonnets, men in suspenders and cloth caps. But that wasn't the strangest part. They smiled at me, waved, called out greetings as if they knew me. "Welcome back, Johnny," an old man called from his porch, using a childhood nickname I hadn't heard in years, a nickname only my family used. I felt a chill run down my spine. Where am I?" I managed to stammer out. The people around me just laughed, as if I'd told a particularly amusing joke. "Oh, you kidder," a woman in an apron said, patting my arm. "You're home, of course." Home. This wasn't my home. I'd never seen this place before in my life. Panic rising, I pulled out my phone. No service, no GPS, not even a hint of a signal. It was as if I'd stepped off the face of the earth. I wandered through the village in a daze, trying to make sense of what was happening. As I did, I began to notice things, strange things. A group of children ran past me, laughing and playing. A few minutes later, the same children ran by again and again. Each time their laughter sounded exactly the same, like a recording on loop. I glanced at my watch, then at the large clock on the church tower. Both read 3:15 p.m. I kept walking, checking other clocks in shop windows. All of them showed the same time, 3:15 p.m., always 3:15 p.m. No matter which direction I walked, I somehow ended up back at the central fountain. It was as if the village was folding in on itself, trapping me in an endless loop. The wind picked up, carrying with it the distant sound of children's laughter. But it wasn't the joyful sound from before. Now it seemed hollow, almost mocking. My heart was pounding in my chest as I ducked into a small shop, hoping to find someone who could give me answers. Instead, what I found only deepened the mystery. The walls were covered in old photographs, black and white images in ornate frames. With shaking hands, I began to flip through them. What I saw made my blood run cold. They were pictures of me, not just as a kid, but as an adult, as I looked right now. There I was, standing next to people I had never met in my life, wearing clothes I didn't own, smiling at events I had no memory of attending. One photo in particular caught my eye. It showed me, looking exactly as I did at that moment, standing in front of the village church. Underneath was a handwritten note, "Returned to us at last." That was it. I couldn't take any more. I ran. I ran faster than I've ever run in my life. Out of the shop, down the cobblestone street, past the smiling, waving villagers who called out to me as if nothing was wrong. I didn't stop when I reached the edge of the clearing. I plunged back into the forest, branches whipping at my face as I tore through the underbrush. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they would give out beneath me. Somehow, miraculously, I found myself back on the main trail. I don't know how. Maybe it was luck. Maybe the forest decided it was done with me. When I finally reached my car in the parking lot, I collapsed against it, gasping for air. My phone buzzed to life in my pocket, suddenly flooded with signal. Missed calls, dozens of them. Frantic voicemails from friends and family asking where I was, if I was okay, saying they were about to call search and rescue. I checked the date on my phone, certain there must be some mistake. I'd been missing for 3 days. 3 days, how was that possible? It felt like I had only been gone for an hour or two at most. As I drove home, my mind raced. What had happened to me? Was the village real, or had I imagined the whole thing? Maybe I had gotten lost and hit my head. Maybe I was going crazy, but I know what I saw, what I experienced. It was too vivid, too real to be a hallucination. In the weeks that followed, I tried to find answers. I pored over maps of the national forest, searching for any mention of an old village. I asked park rangers and local historians. No one had ever heard of such a place. I even went back trying to retrace my steps, but I never found that narrow path again. Never stumbled across that impossible clearing. Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I find myself wondering about that village. About the people there who seem to know me, about those photographs that showed a life I never lived, and I can't shake the feeling that it's still out there, hidden away in the depths of the forest, waiting for me to return home. I never thought a simple estate sale would lead me down this path of terror. It was just a few weeks ago when I decided to check out the old mansion on the edge of town. You know the type, crumbling brick, overgrown gardens, the kind of place that whispers secrets from a bygone era. Most of what I saw that day was junk, to be honest. Moth-eaten curtains, tarnished silverware, the usual forgotten relics of someone else's life. But as I was about to leave, something caught my eye in a dusty corner of the attic. It was a painting, unremarkable at first glance, but something about it pulled me in. The canvas showed a foggy street, dimly lit by old-fashioned street lamps. A lone figure walked away from the viewer, their back turned. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something familiar about that silhouette. The coat, the stance, it was eerily similar to how I looked from behind. I chalked it up to coincidence and bought the painting for a measly $10. Why not? It would look good in my living room, I thought. If only I had known then what I know now. If only I had left that cursed thing to rot in that attic. I hung the painting above my fireplace that very night. It fit perfectly, adding a touch of mystery to my otherwise ordinary apartment. I remember standing there, admiring how the frame caught the light. Everything seemed fine, normal, safe. But it didn't stay that way for long. At first, I thought I was imagining things. You know how your mind can play tricks on you, especially late at night when the shadows grow long. I'd glance at the painting as I passed by, and for a split second I'd swear something had changed. The figure seemed clearer somehow, more defined, but I'd blink and everything would be back to normal. I tried to brush it off, told myself I was being silly, letting my imagination run wild. But after a few days, I couldn't deny it anymore. The painting was changing. The figure, the one that had looked so much like me from the start, it was becoming even more recognizable. The haircut was exactly like mine, down to the way it curled slightly at the nape of the neck. The jacket wasn't just similar anymore, it was identical to my favorite coat, the one I wore almost every day. But it wasn't just the figure. The background was shifting too. What had once been a vague, foggy street was taking on familiar shapes. Street signs appeared, then buildings. With growing horror, I realized I was looking at my own neighborhood. The corner store where I bought my morning coffee. The park where I walked my dog. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the painting was some kind of optical illusion, designed to take on the appearance of its surroundings. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. This was something else, something unnatural. One morning, about a week after I'd brought the painting home, I woke up and immediately sensed something was different. I approached the painting with dread pooling in my stomach. The figure had moved again. Now it stood under a lamppost, its face tilted upward. Following its gaze, I saw a window, a second-story window that I recognized with a jolt of fear. It was my window. That night I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Around 2 a.m., just as I was finally drifting off, a sound jolted me awake. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from my window. My heart pounding, I forced myself to look, but when I peered out into the darkness, there was nothing there. Just the empty street below, silent and still. I told myself it must have been a branch scraping against the glass, or maybe just the old house settling, but I knew better. I knew what, or who, had been there. The next day, dreading what I might see, I forced myself to look at the painting again. My worst fears were confirmed. The figure had moved once more. Now it was inside a house. My house. It stood at the bottom of my staircase, 1 foot on the first step, as if it was about to climb up to where I slept. I couldn't take it anymore. In a panic, I grabbed the painting off the wall and carried it down to the garage. I told myself that if I couldn't see it, maybe it would stop. Maybe whatever curse or madness this was would break if I just got it out of my sight. But it didn't matter. The next time I went down to the garage, heart in my throat, the painting had changed again. The figure was closer now, halfway up the stairs. Its face was still in shadow, but I could feel its eyes on me, boring into me from the canvas. In desperation, I decided to destroy it. I took the painting out to my backyard, doused it in lighter fluid, and set it ablaze. I watched as the flames licked at the canvas, consuming the image that had tormented me. For a moment, I felt relief. It was over. But when the fire died down, my blood ran cold. The ornate frame was gone, reduced to ash. But the painting itself, it was back on my living room wall, completely untouched, as if it had never left. Now, every night, the figure in the painting gets closer. It's like a twisted game of hide and seek, where I'm always the one being sought. Last night, when I finally worked up the courage to look, I saw it standing right beside my bed in the painting. Its face was turned towards me, featureless yet somehow radiating malevolence. I could almost feel its breath on my neck as I slept. Tonight, I'm terrified to even glance at the canvas, because if the pattern holds, if this nightmare follows its twisted logic to its conclusion, it'll be right here, in my room, with me. I don't know what to do. I've tried everything I can think of. I've researched curses, contacted psychics, even considered moving, but something tells me it wouldn't matter. This thing, whatever it is, it's attached to me now. It found me in that dusty attic, and it's not letting go. As I sit here recording this, I can feel eyes on me. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. There's a presence in the room, getting closer with each passing second. I don't want to turn around. I don't want to see what's there, but I know I'll have to look eventually. I'll have to face whatever's coming for me. Because if I don't, if I keep running, I have a feeling I'll end up just like that figure in the painting, lost, alone, trapped in a world between reality and nightmare. So if you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, let my story be a warning. Be careful what you bring into your home, because sometimes the most innocent-looking objects can hide the darkest secrets. And once you've invited them in, it might be too late to escape. I hear footsteps now. Soft but getting louder, closer. I'm going to have to stop recording soon. I'm going to have to turn around and face whatever's behind me. I hope I'm strong enough for what comes next. If you don't hear from me again, well, I guess you'll know why. And maybe, just maybe, you'll see a painting of me someday. Walking away down a foggy street, trapped forever in a world of shadow and fear. Goodbye, and remember, be careful what you bring home with you. You never know what might be watching from within the frame.